Hey Pokepaint fans, it's the John Machine here. So sorry about the wait. I know it's been since March since the last episode, and it's been quite the wait. But I put a lot into this finale episode. In fact, I had to break it up into two parts. Part two is coming next week. Sorry about that. Next week or the week after. But in its original form, it was over an hour long, and I knew I probably wouldn't want to keep you guys' time for that long. So here's part one. Part two is coming soon. I hope it was worth the wait.
Welcome back to the series finale of Pokepaint, the series where I develop new locations, concepts, and Pokemon to turn New England into a Pokemon region, Coloniar. In this finale episode, we do a lot more than simply wrap up the series with just a few more Pokemon designs. I'm taking the entire series and taking you through it as if it were a real Pokemon game. Pokemon Future and Pokemon Past are names that I was going to use, but are sadly apparently already taken. But since online there seems to be multiple incarnations of these games, I'm just going to run with it, because in my opinion nothing else will work just as well. You'll see what I mean by the end of the video. In this episode, I'm going to take you through the Coloniar region on our Pokemon Future and Past journey, visiting all the locations that we've seen and some new ones, and finding old Pokemon, and in many cases, redesigning them. Like our starters, Gastropod, Raycinder, and Crubimp. I decided looking back to these, although I really like the designs, realistically they desperately need a redesign. Mostly due to the fact that them being some of my first ones, and doing it when I was still inexperienced with Krita, they were the ones that seemed to really need a redesign the most. Each of these I redesigned according to my new design process for the Pokemon lands. In most cases, now I find it easier to design them from the final form backwards. Simplifying a design, as it turns out, is far easier than complicating one. Also, I decided to change the theming of the trio, but I'll get into that in a bit. I know what you really came for is some art. I'm going to do all the first stages here at the beginning and then develop the evolutions as we go on our journey. The first Pokemon, if you remember, was inspired by a prompt on one of Subjectively's Pokemon videos. I made my version of a garden snail Pokemon as sort of an homage to his. So here we have the grass type, Gastropod, the garden snail Pokemon. Gastropod have soft bodies, and due to this they require almost immediate protection from birth. They seek out shelter in man-made pottery, and due to the composition of their bodies, this causes the plant inside to grow extremely well. The condition of the plant is a good indicator of their health. Now, the fire type, Raycinder, the raccoon Pokemon. Although these incredibly intelligent Pokemon can produce fire from inside their bodies, they much prefer to do it with the simple tools that they fashion with their dexterous fingers. Even though they are very friendly with humans, they will get territorial over food and will often try to steal yours if you're not careful. And finally, the water type, Crubimp, the crustacean Pokemon. Crubimp are extremely timid, being used to the protection from their strong parents. They don't leave the nest easily. This in turn makes them often an extremely hard Pokemon to train. With our finished starter trio, I'll explain their theming. In most good trios, there are 3 notable personality types. The cool ones, these being the Tricos, the Snivies, and the Froakies of the group. The timid ones, those would be Pokemon like Cyndaquil, Oshawott, and Sobble. And the hyper, or kind of happy one, those being Pokemon like Totodile, Tepig, and Scorbunny. And though, as you can probably tell, not all starter trios fall into these types perfectly, many approximately do, which makes it not a rule per se, but more of a rule of thumb to design by. And in my opinion, the better starter trios lean closer to this rule. So, Gastropod would in this case be the cool one, Raycinder the hyper one, and Crabimp the timid one. So now with 3 starters to choose from, it's time to set out on our journey.
Welcome to the world of Pokemon. This is of course the professor of the Colonia region, Professor Maple. He explains in a familiar way that this world is filled with wonderful creatures called Pokemon, who run on the land, swim in the ocean, and fly in the sky. Some people keep them as pets while others train them to become the very best. Those people are called Pokemon trainers, and that is what you strive to become. It is here where you have the option of the boy or girl character, which will decide who your rival is. If you're the boy, Emma will be your rival, and if you're the girl, your rival is Ben. These names are apparently the most common boy and girl names in New England, according to the Boston Globe. With your character and rival chosen, it's time to head out into the wide world of Pokemon. Starting, of course, in your hometown, the Bangor, Maine stand-in, Fronterton Town. A quiet, out-of-the-way town that subsists by itself on the edge of the wild. You start your day, like every other day, by going down to the lake to play with your best friend and future rival, Emma. There is a break-in routine, however, because it's your 10th birthday, and Emma explains that she has a surprise for you. You follow her to the professor's lab where he gives you the choice between your first Pokemon, Gastropod, or Raycinder, or Crabbe. Immediately, you and Emma return to the lake for your first ever rival battle. This rival battle breaks a bit from routine from the other games. Instead of your Pokemon having an attack move and a status move, I elected to actually give them their respective elemental stab move from the get-go. This does 2 things. It makes the usually more arduous rival battle exciting and challenging, and also teaches new players early on about type matchups. If you chose Gastropod, you have the moves Razor Leaf and Withdraw. If you chose Raycinder, you have Ember and Growl, and if you chose Crabbe, you have Bubble and Leader. Since I usually go with the water types when I play Pokemon, I'll say, in this case, Emma fights you with Gastropod. But of course, this will change depending on what starter you chose. Now, Emma brings you out onto Route 1 for an optional catching tutorial, and you're off. Route 1 is a grassy path surrounded by vast woodlands. This time of the year, the snow melts from the trees and lays in patches on the ground between the grasses. Here in the grasses can be found during the day Freeglet, Dealium, and Squovette, and at night, Upotike, Illumigate, and Lupup. Here we have come to some of the redesigns for the region. First, Lupup, the regional dog Pokemon. I wanted to revisit this line for a few reasons, the main of which is that I found my original drawing to be boring, far too flat as colors go, and I don't think my silhouette was strong enough. This time, I'm all around really happy with how it went. And as a funny turn of events, this first stage is actually my favorite out of the entire line. The second stage is Ice, the Dark and Ice Pokemon. I wanted this line to be a 3-stage from the beginning, but through a mix of laziness and setting an unrealistic deadline for myself, I never designed another stage. But here's Ice, based on the words canine and ice. And finally, the last stage of Loop Up is Ice, from Husky and Ice. Looking more like a real wolf instead of some blue dog, I am overjoyed with how this design came out. This next redesign is the regional bug of the region, Holloman. But since it is one of the designs in my first video, and I was unfamiliar with Krita at the time, I decided it was a good idea to redo these as well. If you remember, this was a Firefly Pokemon that was a fire bug type. Pyrotine, the fire and bug evolved form of Illumigate, had a larger change than its predecessor. Looking originally more like a dragonfly, I wanted to capture the more fairy-like thing that fireflies have going for them in real life. I'm sure you can tell by now that I have a weird obsession with characters that are their own light source. I don't know why, but it's a really fun thing to draw digitally. And it's something that I actually didn't know about myself or my art until I started doing it digitally, because before this year, I had only used a traditional pen and paper. Moving south from Route 1, the snow piles up on the cliffside path above the sea, and we have entered Inlacote Town, the Portland, Maine standard. Just acting for now as a place to stop in at the Pokemon Center and heal up, we don't stop for long and we head down through the rain and mist onto Route 2. This footpath runs through the bogs and pools from the melted snow as we wind our way further south. Here at night, we can find Kricketok, Alumagit, and Culinarian Hoothoot, and during the day, we can find Culinarian Caterpie, Blipbug, Pashel, and Tadpuddle. Tadpuddle and its evolutions were another one of those Pokemon that I didn't really need to revisit, but I felt it necessary due to the sloppy rendering. The designs stayed more or less the same as a point because even though they desperately needed a new render, they're probably my favorite designs that I've made in the entire series. And here is the second stage, Vibratown. Finally, if you remember, the frog Pokemon Amphibole is a part flying type. This is because of its webbed limbs that it would use to glide short distances after it leapt into the air. If you also remember, this design was one that I've had since I was a kid. And I finally think 10-year-old me would be proud of where this Pokemon's come. At the bottom of the route, you come to the Paraway Bridge, based on the border bridge on the Piscataqua River. Here, Emma greets you and challenges you to a battle. Her first Pokemon is a level 7 Freegot, followed by her level 9 Gastropod. After the battle, you pass through Coasis Town, based on the town of Plum Island in Massachusetts. Here, on the beach market, you can battle trainers and tourists to grow a few levels before the first gym. Around the bend, we head to the final stage before the first gym, the deep, dark Holloman Forest. Here in the leaf patches and waist-high grasses, you can encounter the Pokemon Meldreadle, Apotite, Phantom, Pumpkaboo, and the regional cat, Vermilion. This is yet another Pokemon that I'm really glad I revisited. My original one was so flat and boring, and this one I can actually believe in its mischievous personality. Being based off the concept of a familiar, a witch's cat, its name combines the words familiar and feline. This ghost-type cat comes armed with its own signature move, Pounce, which acts like a ghost-type sucker punch, and I've changed its ability as well, with a new one that I now call 9 Lives, which would act like a sturdy, but again, for ghost types. Coming out of the Holloman woods, we arrive in Holloman City. A traditional place that has not forgotten the culture of its past, this Halloween-based city is the stand-in for Salem, Massachusetts. And it's themed in a Halloween manner because of the Salem witch trials that are so associated with its past. Here in the gym, you have to navigate a mirror maze in the dark and battle the trainers who use Pumpkaboo, Fanta, and Endel. When you get to the podium, you encounter the gym leader, Amethyst, whose team has changed up slightly since the first time we saw her. Although I really liked her fighting with the Kalos Ghost duo, in retrospect, it's kinda too much too early. Now, she battles you with a level 12 Pumpkaboo and a level 14 Vermilion. Upon her defeat, she tells you that Pokemon up to level 25 will obey you, and she awards you the TM for Trick or Treat, as well as the Witchcraft badge. After a quick stop at the Pokemon Center, it's only fitting to move right south into the city side path. A park-like path that runs over a stream and winds through the buildings were built there. In the grasses and flower beds can be found the Pokemon Micrant, Pidove, Trubbish, and Squovet. In Kalopolis City, we have our first fateful encounter with the evil teams of the region, in which there are actually two. Team Classic is a group that's laser-focused on keeping the traditions from the past going at all costs, ignoring the advancements of science and technology that help people nowadays. And Team Progress is a team that pursues the production of technology and advancements in industrialization, while ignoring people's rights and their quality of life. These two teams, of course, have opposing views, and as you will soon learn, are socially tearing the region apart. And as my older audience will probably be able to tell, this is just closely veiled commentary on the, let's just say, colorful state of politics in the United States. Here upon the steps of the Capitol building, you encounter a Team Progress grunt and a Team Classic grunt. Fighting, of course. The Classic grunt approaches you and explains that the Progress grunt had stolen his Pokemon, and you return it to him after your battle with the Team Progress grunt's Clink. After this, the Team Classic grunt explains to you who he is and what his group stands for, as well as what Team Progress is. He then offers you to join him, and for the first time since Pokemon Red and Blue, you actually can. This is a choice that will change the gameplay slightly later. And of course, depending on the game that you choose, the events here and in the future will be reversed, with Team Progress as the quote-unquote good guys, and Classic as the bad guys. With our starter Pokemon reaching level 17, around this point it's probably about time for an evolution. Gastropod, the grass type, evolves into the grass and rock type Mollusprout. In my redesign of Mollusprout, I began to translate this Pokemon from its cute little defenseless snail form into somewhat of a tank, which is what I wanted the final design to be in the end. I actually based each of the plants on some that my girlfriend has around the house. She's very into growing common and exotic houseplants, and because of that, I have a lot of options to base my design on. And although I couldn't tell you for the life of me what each of these species of plants are called, I can say that I simply picked each of them to look bigger and overgrown as the evolution line goes on. Like Charmander and its fiery tail, I played with the idea that the plant on its back is a good way to determine its health. Raycinder, if you remember, evolves into the fire and dark type Sparacoon. This redesign was quite honestly the most difficult to pull off for some reason. I can't really explain why, it's just a design I had a lot of trouble coming to. I knew I wanted it to be sneaky to look opposed to its cuter, pudgy look from its first design, but translating that from my imagination onto paper, or in this case screen, was way harder said than done. However, I am really happy with the final design, and I imagine it in battle making more complex tools that I mentioned from its first stage. Finally, Crubbin evolves into the water and fighting type Lobstar. Finally coming out of its proverbial shell, I kept the smug attitude idea, and I think I actually communicated it way better in this design. And I imagine that although it is confident in its abilities and no longer cowers away from battle, it does often bite off more than it can chew, and will need the help of its trainer or its teammates before it reaches its final stage.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the finale. Part 2 is coming in a week or 2 weeks, depending on how much I get done. As always, if you like this video and you want to see more like it, then turn on the bell to get notified when I upload next.